Angie with Lucky Little Learners, and in this training, we're going to talk about effective math interventions that work. Specifically, if you teach first or second grade, this is the video for you. So let's just hop in and get started. If you are not familiar with me, my name is Angie. I am the owner of Lucky Little Learners. Just a little background on my teaching experience. I have taught grades kindergarten, first and second grade. I do have a master's degree in math. And I actually started my blogging journey with Lucky Little Learners all the way back in 2010 as just a way to express myself as a teacher. And it developed into me designing curriculum. And I have been doing that since 2012, and I love what I do. So that's a little bit background on me if you're not familiar with me. But let's actually just hop right in. In the next 20 minutes, we are going to be moving along fairly quickly because I want to pack this video with value. We're going to end the video with a math intervention gift for anybody that watches. I'm going to explain how you can get that. We are also going to talk about the 3 tiers of instruction because that is going to be directly correlated to math interventions and which group we are going to be speaking about. We're going to look at how do you identify the gaps in your classroom, when to do interventions in our very busy schedules, as well as some examples at the end of different math interventions that work. So let's go ahead and hop in. Like I said, you will be getting a free gift at the end, so make sure you stick around. So let's get started with the different tiers of instruction. And I'm going to just speak briefly on this. Essentially, what you will see here is our class can kind of be grouped into I think of it like a pyramid with the top being tier 3. That's the smallest part of the pyramid, and the bottom being tier 1, which is the biggest part. And you'll see here, I should also mention, you will see different little questions in those little speech bubbles on the side. I believe together we are better. So as you're watching this training, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or wherever, feel free to engage in the comments and read through what other teachers are saying. And that can also be a great learning opportunity for you as well. All right, going back to the tiers. So when you think about your classroom in a perfect world, your class is put into one of 3 tiers. And that bottom percent is usually your biggest chunk typically, which would be approximately 80% of your students would be at your tier 1 instruction level, which means that they are performing at or above grade level. Your basic whole group instruction that you teach to the whole class is going to be just fine. Okay. Then you have your tier 2 students. Those tier 2 students usually is only about 15% of your class. So if you have a class of 25, that would be approximately 4 students. And this is the group of students that when you're teaching a specific skill, they're going to be showing a lack of understanding or weak progression of that skill. When we decide to do interventions with our tier 2 students, those are very skill specific and in a small group setting. And then you at the very top of your triangle, so if you think about it like this, at the very top is your tier 3, which is approximately 5%. These are the students that are performing at least 1 grade level below your grade that you're teaching. Oftentimes, these are the students that you're looking at for maybe bringing to the child study team, maybe part of already in the referral process. There's a good chance of that. They are requiring individualized, intensive one-on-one instruction. Hopefully that means if you are teaching a class of 25 students, that is only 1. Again, there are exceptions, but this is generally speaking how things work. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, Angie, my pyramid is upside down. You know, if you're watching this in the year of 2022, we have been through a pandemic, and a lot of teachers are finding that their triangles are upside down and they have a lot more students in their tier 3 than they are in their tier 1. That is for another video. But if that happens, if that is your reality, you're really going to be looking at not necessarily your whole group instruction being at grade level skills per chance. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic. I'm not getting into that right now. We are going to be talking about tier 2 intervention groups. So our focus is really, like I said, those tier 2 intervention students. If I go back to that triangle or these tiers here, this is that middle section that are struggling with a specific skill as you are teaching them to your students. Okay, so before we jump in any further, we need to know how to identify those gaps. How do you know if a student is inside of tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3? And the answer to that is you can do a combination of quantitative data and qualitative data. And I want to just very much simplify those two terms. Quantitative data, think numbers. Think specifically things like exit tickets or just a simple assignment. Maybe it's your end of unit test. It is best if you can catch these skills, obviously, prior to the test, because that's the point. You're trying to get them where we need to get them before you've reached the end of the unit, or when you would expect your students to have mastery. We have different data booklets that are in our math intervention kit. These are really great for giving students those kind of ownership over the skills that they are going to be learning and tackling. These are a part of our math intervention kit, but this is just one way that you can tackle some of these, where are my kids at, where are the gaps at. So this would be the second grade version. And so basically all the skills that your students would learn in a year are in here through different assessments, and then you can kind of target and see where they're falling short. Of course, you also have your curriculum ones that you have in your school district, and any kind of supplemental material as well. When it comes to qualitative data is a combination of observations, whether it be that you're just walking around your classroom and you're seeing that your specific set of students are struggling at a center, or maybe it is when they're doing their independent practice at their desk and you're noticing a certain set of students that are consistently struggling with getting their with solving their problems. Okay. It could be during class discussion, you're seeing that you're having some kids when you are checking for understanding, or you're having your kids doing their turn-in talks with their turn-in-teach partners. You might see that there's certain ones that just consistently struggle to find the explanation or the answer, or they need clarity often. That could be a qualitative data finding. Another one would be with your students that just simply are constantly coming to you with questions. As soon as it's time, and you know which ones these are when you assign the assignment that they're supposed to do at their desk, and the whole class gets started, and those same group of 2, 3, 4 kids will come to your desk right away. Those might be the kids that fall into that tier 2. We do have some free observation notes that you can use with your qualitative data findings if you would like, and I'll make sure that we link them below this video on wherever platform you are watching this. All right, so once you have figured out where those gaps are, now your thought is probably, well, when am I going to fit these interventions in, right? We're busy. And I want to answer this carefully. It just depends on what is going to work best for your classroom, your students, your needs. These 3 examples on the screen, I have done all 3. And when I look at all 3 options, I chose those options for different reasons based upon my students' needs, based upon how many I had in different groups. And I'm going to explain them real quick right now. So option number 1, when to squeeze in a math intervention group. That could be during your centers or your station time. Okay, that might be when all your students are working on a center in a group. You might be pulling your tier 2 students over to the teacher table, and you might be working on a very skill specific math intervention at your table. Okay, that is one option. A second option is while the rest of your class is doing their independent practice. This might be that you pull that group then. You might even use the assignment that you're trying to have your whole class do, but you might be pulling that tier 2 intervention group over to you with their assignment, and you might be going back to some more hands-on things using manipulatives or what have you to get to figuring out the assignment. And then the third option, which is one that was really a creative option that we did in my school district a while back, was something we called tier time. We had 3 sections of second grade classrooms, and what we did was we actually found that our groupings of our tier 2 were bigger than we wanted them to be, and so we got really creative in how we used each other as teachers. We found a common half-hour block of time where we would exchange students, and so we had at that time, we had our middle chunk. Our tier 2 was very large. This is where you have to get creative. Our tier 2 chunk was very large. We actually had 2 classroom teachers taking all the tier 2 students for the grade, and then one classroom teacher that was taking that bottom chunk, and then obviously your really severe needs students in that top tier are going to be hopefully receiving their intervention from the intervention teacher. And maybe you have to get creative in other ways to figure out those one-on-one interventions. But that is one thing that we had done. And it was a little bit of work to get our schedules to all line up and make sure that we were all on the same page with checking our students for understanding, and then grouping our students, and then dispersing. But I will say that during our tier time setup, we had a lot of success with it. And we had a really great team. So it worked pretty nice to have a team that worked well together. So like I said, though, at the end of the day, you have to do what works best for you and your students, thinking about your needs and your students' needs. All right, so let's hop into actually what do these interventions look like. So one thing I always talk about when it comes to math interventions is really looking at that CPA approach. This is that phases of mastery. You can maybe have seen it called a CSA approach or a CRA approach. Pretty much all the same thing, but the CPA approach is basically where you are taking your students on a little journey. And when if they're really struggling with a skill, you're going to start with the concrete stage, where you are going to be giving them hands-on things. You are going to be giving them rec and recs. You're going to be giving them Unifix cubes, base 10 blocks, counters, whatever you need to give them. And as they work through their understanding with the concrete stage, then you're going to move them into that pictorial stage, where they're going to be drawing out some of the things to solve the answers to their problems, whether that be they're using tally marks or number bonds or hundreds charts or what have you. They're going to be doing it more through a picture way of solving. And then finally, in your interventions, you want to be able to get to that abstract level, which is basically without all those extra helps. Okay, so these are just good things to keep in mind. We do have a blog post on this called Using the Phases of Math Mastery to Plan for Small Groups, and we'll also link that below the video. So keeping that in mind, you've identified the gaps, you figured out what your kids are struggling with, whether it be through qualitative or quantitative data. You are figuring out what your groups, who needs to go in what groups, and now you need to actually start with the plans. In our small group intervention kit, we have a variety of different plans that you can use. These are just a few of the pages that you will see in there, because I know every teacher likes to plan differently. And so we are providing you quite a bit of options here. One thing I like to do, though, is I actually want to see what example of what those plans might look like. So we did include a couple of pictures here for you on what it might look like to plan for these groups. So you'll see here in this picture that this person has her 3 different groups, and then she's got the skill here, a lot of place value practice, which is pretty typical. A lot of things come back to place value, addition and subtraction. It doesn't even matter. I think about all the other units in math when it comes to money or word problems or whatever it is. A lot of it comes back to the place value skills or addition and subtraction skills. But then you can see here, she's got her students and then the different notes on the things that she wants to do. And you'll see here her flow of the lesson is teaching a concept, and then they do it together. We call that we do, and then the kids do it. She calls it you do. Okay. Another example of one of those planning pages in use would be this way. Again, similar plans, just looks a little different, structured a little different. All right, let's take a look at some math interventions that work. I'm going to walk you through a variety of different math interventions that I've used in my classroom, and we'll start with identifying the gap and then showing you how we would address it through a math intervention. First set of interventions we're going to talk about is actually number representation. Oftentimes kids just need to know and understand what the value of a number is. So we're going to start with, we're going to show you some first grade and second grade interventions. The first one is simply the value of a 1-digit number. So the value of a 5. And so kids would take and put in the numbers like this to show that 5 is the same as 5 ones, and then you would actually have your students count it up after they place it. So then they'd 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another thing you can do with that is you could place these inside of a dry erase pocket sleeve and write on them with Expo marker. Moving on to 2-digit numbers in second grade and end of first grade, you'll be working with these. And so the number 35, how can we make that 35? And so now what we're going to need are 3 10s to make the value of the 3 for 30. And so you'd have them count that out, 10, 20, 30, and then 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a total of 35. Another intervention for building out the value of a number is using these place value discs. So we do have the foam ones here, but we also include in the math intervention kit some paper ones just in case you don't have them. So starting with the first grade intervention, starting with a very simple 1-digit number. So 4 would be the same as, and we'll use the foam ones for this example, but getting them used to the concept of 4 1s is the same as the 1-digit number 4 and having them counted up. If you are working with end of first grade or into second grade, you're going to be working with 2-digit numbers and even 3-digit numbers. And so here with the number 34, then we've got the 4 1s, and then the kids are going to be asked, what is the value of the 3 in the number 34? And that's when they would take the place value discs and do 3 10s, count them up, 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 34. And you can keep going. You can continue this challenge here by adding in another digit to do a 3-digit number or even a 4-digit number. Charts are another great way to practice the value of a number. We have them in 2-digit and 3-digit numbers, and we also have the ability to make the numbers using these, or you can slide these into a dry erase chart and write them right on the sleeve there. So let's just show, for the sake of demonstrating too, we include the paper manipulatives. We're going to use the foam ones for demonstration, but sometimes teachers don't have all of these, and so we find that teachers do enjoy the option to have those paper ones. So if the student is going to be building the number 71, then what you would have them do is you would ask them how many 1s in the number 71, and so then they would say 1 1, and then you'd say what is the 7-digit worth in the number 71, and they would say 7 10s or 70, and so you'd have them count 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 71. Another skill that often needs a little practice or intervention would be comparing numbers. So working with the value of a digit or a value of a number, but then being able to compare it to another number. I do allow my kids to choose, once we have practiced using these 3 different manipulatives, whether they want to use these, the place value discs, or the base 10 blocks. But essentially this activity includes starting with a 1-digit number if you're first grade or really low second grade. So let's just say the number 6 and 7. Having the students build out the value of 6 and 7, whatever tool that they choose to use, and then taking the greater than, less than sign or the equal sign, and they can also draw that on there, but placing that in the middle and actually saying the sentence out loud. I do like to have my kids say it out loud, so I'll have them say 6 is less than 7, okay? Or if it's a 2-digit number like 64 and 78, okay? Again, build it first and then place the greater than, less than, equal to symbol, and have them read it out loud. 64 is less than 78. And you can challenge their thinking a little bit and ask them, well, why is 64 less than 78? Show me. And that's where they're going to use these hands-on ways to demonstrate that for you. Less is another great intervention activity where the students are given a number and then they need to figure out what is 1 less and 1 more, 10 less, 10 more, 100 more, 100 less. If they are still in the hands-on stage of interventions, you can use the tools. If they're working more towards pictorial, provide them paper or a marker board. And then hopefully eventually they're just to the point where they can do this without as you work them through the intervention. So how this one works then would take the middle number and you'd ask your students what is 1 less, And so then they would write 31. One more would be 33. And of course, you can further their thinking by asking them questions or demonstrating it or asking them how they figured that out. Same thing here, 10 less, 10 more, 100 less, 100 more. When it comes to interventions, we do a teaching time, but then I also like to give them an activity that they can do to practice the skill. So roll and compare is one of those go-to activities for me. One thing I want to mention is dice. My favorite tool to differentiate in math would be dice. I want to explain what I mean. So for those that are still relying on that one-to-one correspondence, you can use those dot dice. P.S. foam. Foam is quiet. Another differentiation tool to kind of step it up a little bit would be digit dice. Again, foam are my favorite. You can give them one dice or give them 2 or 3 dice for 2-digit numbers or 3-digit numbers. Also, multi-sided dice can be a way to differentiate as well. Just add a little bit of variety to the skill. So essentially with roll and compare, how it works is they're going to take their dice and they're going to roll a 2-digit number. So for this one, we can call it 43. And so the child would write 43. And then they're going to roll again. And then they get put together. So we'll call this one 54. And then their job is to put a greater than, less than, or equal symbol in between the two to make the number sentence true. And then they would read it out loud. 43 is less than 54. And they would continue playing this. If you wanted to make this a partner activity, they could do it where partner 1 gets this number, partner 2 gets that number, and could be played that way. Or it could just be an independent activity and they could do the whole thing by themselves. Changing numbers is another great intervention activity. The students will be given some numbers, whether it be 1, 2, or 3 digits assigned by the teacher. That goes in the left-hand column, and their goal is to work from left to right along each row, figuring out, starting at their base number, what's 1 more, 1 less, 10 more, 10 less, 100 more, 100 less. Of course, for those that are still working in that concrete or pictorial stage, they can have a place value mat. This one actually would need to be the hundreds, tens, and ones, but then also giving them those tools of base 10 blocks or any of these to help them complete the assignment. So that is it. The free gift for watching this video can be found below this video, no matter what platform you're watching it on. There is a link for you, and go grab that gift. You're going to be getting 4 different math intervention games: addition beads, subtraction smash, place value popsicles, and 4 square. A lot of really fun hands-on activities that you can implement during your math intervention time. Make sure you guys come back, whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or wherever. We are going to have a video all about literacy interventions. So I would love for you to come back and check it out. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.